Hey everyone, it's that guy over there, bringing you the. What are we on? Part 5 already of the troops. This is the Tyranid Codex review, but this is the troops section. So, kind of a sad part of the Codex. Really, a lot of these units you'll see on the table just because you're required to take at least 2 of them, 3 of them if you take a high fleet detachment, and then when we talk through the formations, you'll see that the warriors, 3 warriors. Uh, like if you're looking to get into Tyranids, it's worth just buying a box of warriors just because it unlocks a lot of formations for you. So we'll talk through all those and kind of how I see them going. Um, but ultimately, most competitive lists are going to take really cheap Ripper squads with deep strike to hold objectives, or Euclid spores, just because they're cheap and just so you have more room for flying hive tyrants, which is sad. But we'll also talk about some ideas for a horde type army, and maybe you guys can make it work better than I can. It was successful for me up until the new Eldar Codex came out. Not this newest one, the one before it, because really not a lot changed. They just made it better. um, it was kind of overpowered to begin with, but that was what kind of saw the demise of my Horde Tyranid list, because somebody in my gaming group had Eldar allied with Dark Eldar, and they would just kind of shoot down all my stuff. So, all right. So, without further ado, troop section. We'll start out with the Tyranid warriors. Their weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 3, initiative 4, attacks 3, leadership 10, save of 4+. Now remember, from the headquarters section, if you put a Tyranid Prime with them, they will become weapon skill 6 and ballistic skill 4. So it's up to you if that's worth 120 points. For 120 points, you can get 4 more upgraded Tyranid warriors. So these guys are 30 points each, but I always like to think of them as 35 because if you put the points into them, you might as well get the Death Spitter, which is a strength 5 3-shot at 18 inches as opposed to the 12-inch strength 4 AP dash Devour. I think Death Spitters are AP 5 too. So I would definitely take that. They do get the option for Lash Whip Bone Swords and Rending Claws and all that stuff. If you take I don't know, I feel like if you're trying to go close combat, you might stick to Shrikes. Because Shrikes, they're jump infantry, they lose a point of save, and we'll talk more about them in the fast attack. But Tyranid warriors can definitely do close combat also, and then now with the pods, they can deep strike in. I feel like with Tyranid primes, I would stick to guns though, just because that's kind of what they're with a 4+ save and synapse. They're really going to be in your backfield holding down the line, and they can take some long range guns. It's like, let's see what they can flip back to where they are. Trying to like flip between the description part and the points part. So they can take one model in the unit can take a basic biocannon, which that's a thing. So that, like for instance, there's a formation where you get 3 biovores and an exocrine, and then they would have to take a biocannon, like a template. And the idea is that all your templates get pinning, and they get to reroll their scatter. So again, Tyranid warriors, they're in a lot of the formations. So I would get 3 of them, make one of them a Tyranid Prime, and that's just like a solid unit that you can really build a lot of things off of. So even though a lot of competitive lists might not take them, so they've got Shadow in the Warp, Synapse Creature, and very bulky, so they take up 3 spots in a Tyrannocyte. Alpha Warrior. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Tyranid Prime only. That's what gives them +1 weapon skill, ballistic skill if they are joined by Tyranid Prime. Just looking through their options, they can take Flesh Hooks, which is grenades. That's kind of cool. It's also 2 strength 4 shots within 6 inches. So you can kind of take 2 close combat weapons, and then you'd go from 3 attacks to 4 attacks, plus you get all the benefits. Rending Claws would probably be nice here. And then the Flesh Hooks let you charge in their Salt Grenades, but then you could also have a shooting attack too, so you could do something in the shooting phase. So that's kind of cool. Not a lot of units can take Flesh Hooks, so when I see them, I'm kind of tempted just to get them because, again, not many can take them. So Tyranid Warriors, not a super competitive choice, but for 90 points, you can have a really cheap, durable Synapse unit. Probably a little more durable than a Zoanthrope. Like 2 Zoanthropes, probably not as durable as 3 Tyranid Warriors. So, and they can hold objectives and stuff. And when they die, your Gaunts don't die, and we'll talk about that now when we get to the Termagants and Hormagaunts. So, Termagants, well, all Gaunts are Web Skill 3, Ballistic Skill 3, Strength 3, Toughness 3, Wounds 1, Leadership 6 with a 6+ save. Now, Termagants have Initiative 4, Hormagaunts have Initiative 5. Termagants are Initiative, or 1 attack. Hormagaunts have 2 attacks, which is like kind of surprising actually. Termagants are 4 points, Hormagaunts are 5 points. So, there's the Shooty Gaunts and the Stabby Gaunts. That's what a lot of people call them. They're infantry. Termagants come with Flesh Borers, which are bolt pistols. Hormagaunts come with Scything Talons, which give them AP 6. They only have 1 set of combat arms, though, so they'll only ever have 2 attacks. Termagants have Lurk, whereas Hormagaunts have Feed. They both come with Move Through Cover. And then Hormagaunts, they have this rule called Bounding Leap. Units entirely composed of models with this special rule, run an additional 3 inches. This will normally be D6 plus 3 inches. So if you give them Adrenal Glands, they get to reroll that. Not sure. I mean, really depending on your meta. Toxin Sacks. This is probably one of the only units that I would take Toxin Sacks on. Just because, like, 30 of them charging into a... Let's just say it's that Death, or the Corpse Thief. The formation that the Dark Eldar can take with all the Toughness 7 Talos models. Or Talos models. They would just get destroyed by a unit of Hormagaunts for not that expensive. It makes them 8 points, I think, because it's 3 points a model. Let me check. Troops, Hormagaunts, yeah, 3 points, which is kind of expensive. It almost doubles their cost, but it's makes them really ridiculously. They'll just chew through a lot of really high toughness things. Even monstrous creatures, being Initiative 5, 30 of them on the charge would be 90 attacks, 45 hits, and that's 23, we'll call it, 4+ wounds. And then on a 6+, that's almost 8. So it does 3, we'll call it 2 wounds. And then, it goes from there. But, that's for 30 of them with Toxin Sacks, that's 8 times 30, 240 points. It's not super bad. But again, remember, both of these units have to stay within Synapse range because Lurk, they'll run away. And Feed, they will stop moving and hit themselves, take a whole bunch of casualties, and then probably run away. So they have to stay within Synapse range. And that's kind of why you don't see them. 10 Termagants is 1 point more than 3 Rippers, but the reason why you see so many Rippers is because the Gaunts, they need to be babysat, and there's just not points for that in a lot of games. You need all your points to do stuff, not just stand there and babysit. However, the Warrior Brood, that would be perfect to sit there and try to hold them down with the Warrior Brood, or a Zoanthrope kind of tucked away somewhere. They pair up a lot with Tervagons. Tervagons will give them counterattack within 12 inches of them, and that's really it. And Tervagons will make more of them, 3d6, and on a doubles they kind of run out of eggs or whatever, so they can't birth out any more Gaunts. But again, when the Tervagon dies, they take 3d6 strength 3 hits, which is terrible. So just keep that in mind. So Gaunts, if you take a Horde type list, I would take 30 Gaunts and put a Tyranid Prime in there, and that's 30 wounds for them to chew through before they actually get to the Termagant or to the Tyranid Prime. When I played that, the Eldar player, he brought one of the Crimson Hunters, and he could precision shot on a 5+, and I rolled ones for my lookout sirs, and he just killed my Tyranid Prime, and it like caused my whole army to fall apart. So just keep that in mind. People might actually be able to pick it out, and if that's your only Synapse creature, that's really bad. But yeah, every Horde style list, and really you could, if you have 30 Gaunts and a Tyranid Prime, that's not a bad unit to sit in the back. It's 240 points, and it can string out real far and give cover saves to other things and hold objectives, and then it's fearless. So Gene Stealers. Now, Gene Stealers, I took a list against a Necron player, and it's actually the most models I've ever killed was with the Gene Stealers, but that's not saying anything because most Necrons I've ever killed, it's just the new Codex came out, was with the Gene Stealers, but that's not saying much because I just killed 2 squads of warriors. So what I had done is I took some formations, which let me took it was like 14 units of, or 13 units of 5 Gene Stealers, and with Adrenal Glands. I feel like Gene Stealers are 14 points each, and you really need to take Adrenal Glands on them, because if you give them Adrenal Glands, it is realistic for a certain number of them to kill any unit in the game, to include Wraith Knights, to include Imperial Knights. I'll just run through their stats here real quick. They got Gene Stealer, which is Weapon Skill 6, Ballistic Skill 0, one of the only Ballistic Skill 0 models in the game. Strength 4, Toughness 4, Weapon Skill 1, Initiative 6, Attacks 2, Leadership 10, 5+ save. And they can be upgraded to have a Broodlord, who is Weapon Skill 7, Ballistic Skill 0, Strength 5, Toughness 5, Wounds 3, Initiative 7, Attacks 4, Leadership 10, Save 4+. Broodlord is an infantry character, so he just is part of the squad, can't leave it. They have Rending Claws automatically. The special rules is Bulky for Broodlord only, Fleet, Infiltrate, Move Through Cover, Psyker, Mastery Level 1 for the Broodlord, and then the Broodlord always knows the Horror Psychic power, but he comes with the minion for Psychic Focus, which is nice because they're not fearless, so like somebody shoots you can go to ground, and then the Broodlord, if you have one, can cast Dominion. Now they're fearless, they get back up and they can assault or run, which might catch people off guard. They don't come with options for flesh hooks. They were the ones that like originally had flesh hooks too, you know. It's kind of sad. Gene Stealers used to be, in a long time ago, rending was if you rolled a 6 to hit, it hit, automatically wounded, and it ignored your armor save. So imagine coming in with like 24 attacks, that's 4 just dead, right? If you roll, because you'd roll 4 6s statistically. And they could take a tentacled face, feeder tendrils, and everybody within 2 inches of them got preferred enemy, which meant, for a while there, it meant you always hit on a 3+, even if their weapon skill was higher. Then it meant you rerolled to hit, which is when Black Templars became ridiculous. And then now it's reroll once to hit and to wound, but we don't have that rule anymore. So Broodlord, well, I guess it doesn't really matter if he can take it. He can take Biomorphs, but that's like Toxin Sacks, Acid Blood, Dream Glands Regeneration. So the bad thing about a Broodlord, it used to be you'd upgrade a Gene Stealer for like 48 points or 46 points. Now you add a Broodlord for 60 points, which means you can't, your Commando squad, which was like 4 Gene Stealers and a Broodlord, basically got 14 more points expensive. 16, because you can't upgrade one, you have to take 5 plus the Broodlord, which that's not too bad. I used to always take a brood of Gene Stealers, but now with cover saves getting kind of reduced, and the Feel No Pain being harder to access, and being only a 5+ now, it dropped off. That being said, you can work it out and figure out It's 27 Gene Stealers on the charge with Adrenal Glands will kill a Wraith or Imperial Knight, and then 33 of them on the charge will kill an Imperial or Wraith Knight because of the Rending Claws. So that's something to keep in mind. But at that point, you're spending, because 27 of them, that's only, oh, I'm sorry, that's how many models you need. At that point, you're spending a lot of points on Gene Stealers, and their inability to do anything in the shooting phase really kind of hurts them. You need something in there to draw attention away from your close combat units. Infiltrate is nice. They're just not. They're just so disappointing. That list I took with a whole bunch of them, it was cool to put that many Gene Stealers on the table because it was 85 Gene Stealers or something, but they just died way too easily. And again, Necrons are really good right now. And he had those Strength 6 Ignore Cover Blast templates that were. It was like they would direct hit, and then one would scatter off and hit another brood, and on a 2+ they just died. And yeah, those were really effective. That being said, I think you could work with that list and make it work. But now you're skewing your list in such a way that, like, if you buy a smattering of units, you could still use those units. But if you spend the same amount of money on Gene Stealers, like, all you have is Gene Stealers, so you can't really try out other things. And it takes more money to go a different direction. So just keep that in mind. They're kind of cool. The Broodlord, I want him to be really cool. The Horror doesn't go off nearly as much as you'd think it would, because so many things are leadership 10, and they get to reroll all their morale checks and stuff, and their pinning checks. The Horror is the one that pins them at -2 leadership. With the Death Leaper Assassination Brood, you kind of need that for the -1 leadership within 12 inches of your lictors when you take that formation to do these leadership hijinks. But they're really deadly in close combat still, but you're just not going to get there with enough of them to matter. So I've had like 2 or 3 of them make it into Fire Warrior squads and then get beat back, and then that's embarrassing because now my Gene Stealers are losing to Tau Fire Warriors, which is sad. Rending is really good, though. I would keep that in mind. So we'll go ahead. I already talked about Tervagons. I would always run them as troop choices, but you have to take 30 Gaunts to make them work, and then you don't want the Tervagon to be sitting right next to your Gaunts, because if they're within synapse range, then, or within 12 inches, then they're within synapse range, and when they die within 12 inches, then they take all these hits, and it's bad. It's really bad. But if you take a 30 Tervagons anyway, it's worth considering a Tervagon to sit on the other side of the table and hold objectives over there with free Tervagons, and then the one you paid for will be over here with like a brood of warriors to hold them down, so they can hold an objective or something. We'll skip ahead to Rippers. So Rippers, I think that's my last one. Yeah. So Rippers, this is like your competitive choice. I'll do Mucolid Spores too, even though that's in a different book. But Rippers is probably your most competitive choice if you're looking to hold objectives. They are Wep Skill 2, Bliss Skill 2, Strength 3, Toughness 3, Wounds 3, Initiative 2, Attacks 4, Leadership 5, Save 6+. They're infantry. They're fearless. They have instinctive behavior, feed, and swarms. So swarms means like if a flamer template hits them, they get double wounds, or any kind of template, but they ignore cover when they move around, and I think they get, I'm getting my rules mixed together for, they used to get +1 cover save, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Anyway, just be aware of like a Hellhound, because a Hellhound will not only do double wounds, but it will do double instant death wounds and just completely kill your whole squad. Like, it just sets on the template and they're gone. Or those new Necron Tomb Blades with the Strength 6 Ignore Cover templates. So just be aware of that. These are not a combat unit. They're here to hold objectives. You can pay 2 points a model to give them Deep Strike. They're 13 points each, so it takes them from 39 for a minimum squad to a 45-point squad, and that's what people take. They deep strike in, so it keeps them off the table, and then they can deep strike on objectives. And because they're fearless, when they feed, sure, they can't move, but if you deep struck on top of an objective, then you're not trying to move anyway. And they take, if there's 3 models, they take 3 strength 3 hits, which is 1.5 wounds. So you'll do 1, maybe 2 wounds, and that's not going to kill them. So because they each have 3 wounds. So that being said, if your dice get hot, then you could just like eat your own squad and kill them. They could kill themselves, which is really kind of silly. But just keep that in mind. It's a cheap troop choice, and that's really what people are looking for anymore. And then the last troop choice I'll talk about is this Muculid Spore Cluster. It is in the Leviathan supplement. 15 points a model. They are Weapon Skill Dash, Boost Skill Dash, Strength 1, Toughness 3, Wounds 3, Initiative 3, Attacks Dash, Leadership 3, Save Dash. They have Deep Strike, Fearless, and Shrouded. So not Instinctive Behavior, and they're Shrouded. And it takes people off guard when they see them. They don't realize they have 3 wounds right away, and they're Toughness 3. So they're actually kind of survivable for 15 points. Massive Floating Bomb. Each Muculid Spore uses a floating death and living bomb rules that apply to spore mines. See Codex Tyranids. All references to spore mines and spore mine clusters, and these special rules apply to the Muculid Spores. Also, except that the hits inflicted when a Muculid Spore explodes are Strength 8 AP 3 rather than Strength 4 AP 4. So, the Muculids, they get Strength 8 AP 3, and then increase the strength of the attack for additional Muculid Spores as for spore mines. So you could have, if you have a brood of 3 of them, you can take 2 additional. That's Strength 10 AP 3, which is pretty massive. That being said, I don't think people take them because they're kind of expensive. So you have to buy the Tyrannocyte kit and then use them as a Sporocyte, because the thing that holds that giant thing off the table is the Muculid Spore. It's just like merged together. So they come as part of this like $60 kit. So it's like each one of them is $60. That being said, Forge World has really cool spore mines that come 3 in a blister, and they're big like these are, and that's what I use, even though the model looks really great. But I think a lot of people are just taking singles for 45 points, you can fill up your 3 troop choices and then run 3 Flying Hive Tyrants from the Hive Fleet Detachment. Just saying. And then they have Skyblast. This is the other big rule. Muculid Spore Clusters are allowed to assault zooming flyers or swooping monstrous flying creatures. If they do so successfully, then they will explode as described in the Floating Death Special Rule, hitting target automatically with strength and AP as described above. Hits on zooming flyers are always resolved against the target model's side armor. So Strength 8 AP 3, I've wrecked Necron flyers before with this. If you had 3 of them charge Demon Prince, like imagine that your Toughness 5 Demon Prince is suddenly assaulted by Spore Clusters and takes a Strength 10 AP 3 hit. That would be pretty scary, because you could totally instant death that Demon Prince. Some of them are Toughness 6, so check before, but for 45 points, it's not bad. They cannot hold objectives, though, because they're mines, they're spores, which is something spore mine clusters can't use either. They don't count for mission special rules or anything like that, so no first blood, no nothing. And there are some cool formations you can take, the spore field specifically, and I'll talk about that when I get to formations. So I'll have to do like if you're a new player, these are the models I think, or the box kits I think you should buy. And these guys, to be honest, unless you're trying to get sporocytes, you really need to look at Forge World. Or maybe you could get away with using it or making one out of green stuff or something, or using because there's the small spore mines, and then there's like the taller ones that come with the harpy. That's another choice. Um, but then you're not making them. You're not using the GW model that as it is intended. That's kind of more of a proxy. So just be advised that they cost more in dollars than they do in points, and you just got to get around that or come to terms with the fact that you have to buy a $60 kit to get one of them. So anyway, that's the troop section. I think the competitive choices are your Sporcis or your Mucolids and your Rippers, and the everything else is, maybe you're trying to take them to unlock something, like Termagants unlocking a Turbogon as troop, or Warriors to unlock a formation. Um, and then like for me, I was running the Gene Stealer list just because it is possible for them to kill everything in the game, um, to include Wraith Knights and Imperial Knights and whatever other kind of thing. You just have to have enough of them. So maybe somebody can run with that too. I'll talk about that Gene Stealer list at some point. Um, but if you're running Gene Stealers, you really need to take a lot of them and take them in as small of a squad as you can. So five models, and it's like, how many 5-man brute squads can I take? And then that's where you need to be looking. So anyway, that's all I've got for troop section. Please like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. Thanks.